they've been looking at this and have some good information for us. So, Mr. Jolly, you want?
Thank you. So just as an addition to the report I submitted in June, I've handed you this map prepared actually by your GIS items. The first page, the orange represents...
Put on the overhead. We're sending a paper. Oh, sorry.
This is just a couple other copies if anyone else would like one. The reason for that is when I was here in May, Councilman Farrell raised a good question. Didn't really know how concentrated the secondary residential properties were because in most counties they're scattered and there was a good chance they were concentrated maybe in the city areas and that kind of thing. But so we had him show on map where those properties are located and it appears that they're scattered all over the county. So this is just the orange on the first page represents secondary properties. The yellow on all the rest of the pages. And I've tried to zoom in just a little bit in some areas so you could see in a little more detail because some of these blocks look like one parcel. They're actually multiple parcels, and in other cases they may be a single parcel. So just to give you a feel.
Maybe what you ought to do, Craig, is define what a secondary property is.
Okay, so the issue...
And you show it on the sales ratio.
Yeah, the issue that I brought up in May was that secondary residential properties are those that are second homes. They don't receive the primary residential exemption. They're typically cabins, or in your case, a lot much more than cabins, but they're second homes owned by people who don't qualify for that primary residential exemption. But
People who have a primary residence somewhere out of the county.
exactly. It could be in the county or out of the county. Either way, it's a second home. And typically, because it's a second home, they're not going to be the cookie cutter type of homes that you find concentrated in a metropolitan area or in a city area. They're going to be usually a little more scattered, so it takes more travel time. They're usually not as cookie cutter similar to each other, so there's usually more time involved. So there was kind of an issue, whereas you have, is it a 90% range of your properties? I mean, and of your real property. Oh, it was more than half of your property, your locally assessed real property, more than half.
Page are you on there?
This is on page A2, the appendix of the report. So this is a report that we sent in June. So I don't know how much you want me to rehash over what I spoke about there versus just summarizing or answering questions. You let me know what you want me to proceed.
So you're talking about secondary homes right now?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you this additional data since we didn't have the data when I first talked about it.
Maybe here we go. Well,
Shows you how your properties are scattered. It's a little more time intensive to get around to all these properties.
so we want to put that one on. That's one you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
This isn't color, but
So it would be the lower pie chart, and the big chunk that's about half of it represents the amount of your real property.
and if you
base.
look at the top one, it shows what it is on the state average.
Yeah, typically statewide. That's just one of the factors that indicates that there's a real need for maybe a few more appraisers than we have in some other counties. The other reason is you have on page, let's see.
I have a question on this. We'll move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so on secondary homes, this is countywide you're talking about, not in any specific geographic area. So what is the trigger, and then what is the procedure for reassessing those homes? Do you just reassess one geographic area every 5 years on a cycle? Or if your coefficient is so high, do you then reassess the entire county?
typically, you're just going to assess about 20% of your parcels every year. But some counties do it a little differently. They may actually do more than that, or they may tackle just a particular type of property. And so you may do all of your secondary properties in 1 year, but I'm not sure how the assessor's office is doing currently, but you do 20% per year of everything.
20% minimum is what we're
Minimum, yeah.
required to do.
The law requires that all property be revisited, reappraised every 5 years.
Okay, so it's on a 1-foot cycle. Okay.
Depending on what's selling in the market.
I think we're talking too. On the sales ratio, we have primary residential or residential property, and then we call it secondary residential.
Right.
That's not talking about, you're not comparing, I don't want to say this. Danny brought up the fact that our dispersion in 2015 was high on secondary property. Well, in the sales ratio, we're only comparing recreational type properties, are we not, on secondaries? Or are you breaking out?
Wholesales in the market is what we're required.
All right, but if the,
Yeah, I'm actually not prepared to talk about a sales ratio study. I didn't even open it up to look at it. I thought you just wanted to talk about
no, I
study.
know, but I think we're talking about comparison. I mean, a lot of these residential properties are in the city, and they're treated just like the residential, any other residential property. The only difference is they're secondary because of the use, not the difference in the valuation.
Well,
You can have two identical homes and have them priced the same, one being a secondary, one being a primary. One would be assessed at 100% of value, and the other would be at 55% of value.
yeah, that's
But
correct.
it'd be, the same tool would be used to appraise both of them.
The same tools. And the two properties, you could have two almost identical properties, one's primary, one's secondary. But
Yeah, but they wouldn't be broke out on the sales ratio as different type properties. They'd all be shown as residential property.
right, and my concern was, as an appraisal problem, it's going to take you more time when they're dispersed as much as they are, and when they have, the ones that are in the town that are the same as the other residential properties aren't going to be as big of a deal. But the ones that are scattered about, you've got Wolf Creek, you've got Wallsburg, you've got Strawberry. I mean, there's a lot of property out there that requires travel, requires a little more detailed look at the way the home is constructed. It's not a cookie-cutter type subdivision that most primary residential in most counties.
Yes, also that, we have 5 times more than the state average. So the purpose here today is to recommend that we hire a few more appraisers.
Yeah, and if you want me to go into more detail about what we've covered in the past, I could do that. But really, the bottom line is, our recommendation was that besides the assessor, that you have 6 appraisers. We had talked about the IAAO recommending 9.5 or something like that, not being necessarily reasonable in the state of Utah with our budget situations. But that 6 seemed like a reasonable start. It may be that 7 would be better, but I think it's better to start out with 6 and see how it goes. You don't want to hire too many people to start with and then realize maybe you needed personnel in a different area or something like that. Just kind of go at it in increments. And if that works, great. We can review in a year and see how things are going. But that 6th appraiser really is important to have right away. We've already lost 2 productive months in the summer, which is the most important appraisal period, I think.
So,
Have the weather.
so if I understood you properly, when you appraise a secondary home, it's more intensive, the work required is more intensive?
Similar, yeah.
So you're using the same tools, but you're looking at it more intensely? I mean, what exactly?
Well,
Maybe not too detailed.
Yeah. Where I live, I have a subdivision. All the homes look the same. In fact, for the first year or so, I couldn't remember which one was mine because I'm driving in the subdivision. They all look the same. You walk up and down the street as an appraiser, it's pretty easy to pick those up quickly. Secondary properties often are more dispersed, spread out. But I mean, if you're just going down the street, picking them up one after another, and the secondary home looks like the others, it's not an issue. When it becomes an issue is when it's a cabin, when it's a property up in a place like Wolf Creek, when it's a property that's got a lot of, it's further away, more driving to and from those areas and that kind of thing. In most counties, there's a concentration of population around the city, and then there's agricultural land. You might have a few farmhouses out there, but it's those counties that have cabin properties and things like that. They're concentrated up in the mountains or far away. They've got a lot more drive time. Those cabins are not all exactly alike. And so in your county, it's even more so than in other counties. And they're not just little cabins. They're often big, very complicated homes to measure and to appraise.
Okay, so it's more complicated,
I
right?
think that a good comparison of trying to appraise a home in Cape Meadows is a lot easier than appraising a 10,000 square foot home in Deercrest.
Okay.
And that's the point you're trying.
And then
Right.
from your charts, we share that same problem with Summit and Wasatch, Washington County.
Yeah,
Because of the same reason, probably.
exactly. Well, the secondary properties are
Yeah.
a little bit more intensive.
So volume is what's the driver here for the need for,
That's just one of the issues. You got the, is it the second highest average sale price for homes in the state besides Summit County?
Yeah. That shows on.
Those more expensive homes are more complex. It's a more difficult problem. So it's important to have enough staff to cover it.
okay, so volume and complexity are the issues, but where they are geographically doesn't matter because we're really picking 20% though of the county, 1/5 of the county to assess that geographic area. Is that how you're doing it, Bob?
We tried to, but we have to go by sales right now because they're everywhere. So we're getting a whole lot more than your 20%. But we're driven because the state, when they do the sales ratio study, is showing that all these sales are everywhere in the county, so we're having to go to those.
So you're doing your 20% that's in that 5-year cycle, and then on top of that, you're redoing these based on the sales fee.
All over the entire county?
Anything that
What's your
sells,
thought?
you have to verify the sale, and in effect, you're appraising every sale.
Yeah.
But you're trying to do it in a way that's...
So is that a
uniform and
requirement, so if we're doing 1/5 of the county, and then some home sale over here that are secondary homes, is it required that we reassess them that year?
Not that you
of the
reassess
sales?
those, but
Or we can wait
those
until
will
the
be
cycle?
data that you can use to value all the other properties.
If
You've
you've
got
got
to look
enough
at them.
sales.
I got you.
In fact, you're appraising each property.
If they find it out in a certain area, they'll use a factory to raise that area up until it's reappraised again.
And it's difficult to do the factoring part too, because like Mr. Jolly said, that your homes aren't cookie cutter. It's hard to factor them all up, and they're different sizes, different styles of different quality.
Well, you need to
But we
do
do
your
have-
neighborhoods and do your
Yes.
sales ratio of like properties,
Yes.
so that you're comparing like properties to the sales price. And it's not a general area.
So the goal with our recommendations is to give the assessor's office the staff they need to do the job, to do the analysis, and not to burn out the appraisers that they have already. And so that's kind of what we recommended. In addition to the 6 appraisers, we've recommended that there be 2 non-appraisal personnel in the office. I've been very idealistic and kind of tried to put into a box the job duties that might be in the office. I indicated 1/3 of a person to do primary residential, probably more than that. You've got the 3rd highest volume of secondary properties in the state, which requires a lot of paperwork and follow-up to make sure that the proper people are getting the exemption and those that don't deserve it are not. But my hope was that the other person in the office, the data collector, could kind of help during the busy times, and that eventually, with some help from other counties, best practices, the tax commission, that we could help the assessor's office and use technology and other things to streamline and be able to make those administrative duties more efficient, so that we could try to get another data collector out in the field to kind of help do some measuring and that kind of thing.
So looking at your little chart, it shows 9.
Right, 9 total. And that excludes any motor vehicle or recommendation
Yeah, they're
to
separate.
completely separate them. So Also, the green belt, put down a third person for that, and personal property a third for that. But again, the issue that we have, can't simply categorize things like that. There's going to be a lot of flexibility that has to be taken into account. January to May is a busy time for all of these functions, but there also is a busy time continuing on into the appeal period. And in the case of personal property is one example where there are some things that could be cleaned up a little now, but it may take a year or two to do so. We've got a lot of non-filers apparently, personal property, business personal property, and that carries the process past May when those affidavits are due. We could help with that. The tax commission does audits. You would pay 30% of the cost. We cover 70% of the cost. And last year, for every dollar a county spent on audits, they recover $30 in tax revenue. So it's a pretty good investment. I don't know if you can do anything like that in the stock
The
market.
audits that we done last year.
What we did, last year, we got, seemed like I just got a bill for $12.60, which is at least 12 this year, but she's really good about pursuing them, so.
So she may be able to do the audit process herself without spending that money, but we're there to help. We're there to train if necessary or to support, but we also would actually conduct those audits. The other advantage of us conducting the audits is the taxpayer gets mad at us and not you. So there's an advantage there as well. The 10-year average for every dollar spent by a county, the recovery is $19 of revenue recovered to your county for every dollar you spend. Actually, it's not just to the county, it's to all the entities. It's tax dollars.
So what are we waiting for?
It sounds really good, but you got to balance it with your politics, with your social situation. You got to balance it with other things, but that is a primary way to improve the filing, get people filing, and then you don't have this process carrying into the later months. That'll streamline the office. Another thing is, as far as Greenbelt goes, you've got a GIS guy who apparently is very bright. We've got a GIS guy that's been helping counties throughout the state to map out all kinds of issues and help assessors be able to go out with an iPad and discover parcels that are on Greenbelt that shouldn't be, or that completely have been on for years and there's no production whatsoever. They're with overhead maps with satellite photos and things like that, and all these layers to visualize stuff that they couldn't see before, and it's been a huge benefit to those counties. So we can provide some assistance there. There's a lot of things that we can do to kind of help streamline the office, and like I said, it's an ideal goal to have one person, basically the equivalent of one person covering all that administrative stuff so that you can have a data collector, but in reality there's going to be a long transition. So most likely those two people are going to be doing office things for at least a year until they can try to work through and get that going. Any other questions about staff?
I have a question about Greenbelt, but before I ask that, I wanted to ask a question about the 9 FTEs. Scott, this question for you. If, so Buff's an elected official, can the county council or the county manager dictate to Buff if we give the funds to hire 9 full-time personnel? Can we dictate to Buff and say, this person will do Greenbelt, this person will do assessment and whichever area? Can we as the council or can the county manager dictate that to an elected official?
My quick answer without looking into it is an elected official gets to be in charge of the duties that are inherent in their elected official, but the council can make policies and procedures regarding personnel. So when it comes to my office, if there's something about the practice of law, I make those decisions, but if there's something about personnel and how that works, the personnel policies come into effect. But to give you a bit more detailed answer, I'd have to look at more detailed
In your
question.
office, as an example, could we say we don't want this person prosecuting this case, we want this other person out of your office prosecuting it.
And the answer is no.
I'm not sure you'd really want to do that anyway. When you get to the point of micromanaging an office that's outside of where you actually work and have a feel for what's going on,
No, I agree. I wanted the clarification. On green belt.
So when you say no, that includes us and or the county manager.
yes.
He isn't over the elected official, but he is over the employees in that office. So how
But
does that?
she's over the duties of her office.
Okay, that's what, I think what you were asking about.
Right, but so if we came up with a plan and we said, look, for this plan to work, we think person A should be doing this job and person B should be doing that job, then the question is, can we dictate that, or can we only make it a recommendation, and it's up to the elected department head to determine what they do?
Well, certainly we got a recommendation here already. I want to hear from Buck and see, do you like the recommendation?
I'm
I'm not
grateful.
sure we got a clarification on it.
I am grateful for any help that we can get, any support that we can get from our office. It's a
Recommendation here,
recommendation.
as far as a third, that's what you're talking about.
Is that one person knowing that you're taking home 3/3?
What it is two people would share the duties mostly during January through May period, and maybe even into the summer through appeals and that kind of thing. And then if there's the ability for the two of them to get all that done, then the two of them could become data collectors during the other part of the month, and maybe go out in the winter, in the bad weather, and enjoy that. But I think the main thing is there's got to be some flexibility. I was trying to emphasize the fact that it would be great to get to the point where through streamlining and making things a little better, you could have a data collector in addition to the appraisers that you have. We talked about, one of you had mentioned, you may have been the one who mentioned the 7th appraiser in May. I can't
I
remember.
wasn't present, I missed the meeting, I apologize.
Oh, okay. The idea of a 7th appraiser seemed a little premature. And so this idea of just having 2 non-appraisers, I think I should have emphasized that more than specifying exactly how much time they're going to spend doing those duties. Because to be honest with you, I don't know how much time they're going to spend. We're trying to make guesses based on similar counties, but nobody's exactly like Wasatch. And so it's kind of a feel, you have to see how the ebb and flow goes. And that's another thing that can be evaluated in a year.
But
See
you're,
how it's
but
going.
you're counting these 333s as one?
Yeah.
One FTE?
Right, not necessarily one person, but one full-time amount of salary that's being paid out to cover duties, whatever needs to be done. And then another full-time amount of salary covering data collection,
And then the 6 assessors,
and then 6 appraisers and,
appraisers.
yeah.
Ms. Blige, you have a question on that?
Yes, I did. Just for a point of clarification, Mr. Jelly, are you talking about 6 additional appraisers or,
They currently have 5, they
okay,
just need 1 more.
one more? Okay, I was wondering if you were talking about hiring another
Yeah, and they
6.
currently have 2 non-appraisal people in the office that I understand are very sharp. They're capable of taking on, some data collection or whatever these other responsibilities are. I don't think there's any question about their ability to